Good morning and good evening, class. Today we are going to start Business Essentials Part 2. We have completed Part 1 in the previous classes, and whoever is watching on YouTube, there are 4 videos for Part 1, Chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6. You would like to go and watch them first before you come to this course. This will help you learn a lot. So I strongly recommend you go and watch those videos first. Let's get started. So class, this Business Essentials Part 2 will be more detailed information about that we have studied already, like requirement gathering, elicitations, all those techniques. So what is the difference here from the previous class? Here we are going to study the requirement elicitation definition and techniques in details, and also how do you capture and define the requirements in details, what are different techniques that we will be using, and what is the pros and cons of all those techniques. So this is the agenda of this whole course, and that we will be closing 2 classes the max today or maybe tomorrow. And the objective of the course is you will learn in detail the process of elicitations, the process of gathering, and different the advantages and disadvantages of all those techniques. So we are going to study in really detail. So please pay good attention and please ask questions if you have. And this course will also help you learn how do you actually define, or what is the correct word? It's like, how do you identify the good stakeholder? That would be the right word, identifying the stakeholders and documenting them. And then as usual, I'll also give you some the questions that you can practice, and important tips will always be there in all my videos. So stay tuned. Key points, as I have always been requesting you guys, you don't need to memorize anything unless you see this red icon here. And I would recommend you memorize only mathematical formulas and by practicing them, not by memorizing them. So in this BA course, you will have like hardly some of the formulas, not all. For the project managers in the PMP classes, we have like good number of formulas that I recommend them to remember. But for you guys, probably like a couple of them only. All right, so next, the key terms, these probably might be the repetitions of all those terms. And hopefully by this time we have studied a lot. So you may have already understood most of them watching the previous videos. If you have not, I would recommend you go and watch those videos once again. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. And the YouTube viewers, you can comment and I can try answer your questions. Let's start then. What is requirement elicitation? So before I go ahead, let me give you a little background that what we have studied before. For some people, requirement elicitation and requirement gathering are both same thing. For us, requirement elicitation is like one step in detail of the requirement gathering. So when we are saying requirement elicitation, it's not only requirement gathering, it's also requirement definitions. How do you define those requirements? So in requirement gathering, we focus on what is needed and why it is needed. Moreover, during elicitation, it also includes how, when, and where can we deliver. And we will not be able to know how, when, and where unless we go a little detail on those captured requirements. So if you hear people saying requirement elicitation, and if they talk about the requirement gathering, and they also include this identification, prioritizing of the requirement, finding the constraints, dependencies, then they're right. They're actually doing requirement gathering and elicitations all together, which is okay. If you have good experience, which is okay, you can do that. That all depends upon your experience and your the nature of the project. But I would always recommend people, you should not focus on how, when, and where can it be delivered during the requirement gathering. This might make your life a little complicated. So try to have them at 2 different places. Number one, focus on what is needed, why it is needed. And when you're actually doing analysis and elicitation, you can do, okay, now how can we deliver? What are the different constraints, challenges that we have, when and where this can be delivered based on all those research. Requirement elicitation is very critical steps because this is the foundation of the whole project. So if you do not have a good foundation, your whole project will collapse. So this is very important, and you as a BA will be playing a very crucial and very important role in this requirement elicitation and requirement gathering phases. This is very, very important. You have to be very focused on this thing. This is the base foundation of everything. So this has to be really strong. As we have always been telling, if the requirement is not properly captured, defined, understood, software might not be success. This might fail. The reason being, this will not have the actual thing that we have to take it forward in order for the successful completion of the project. And obviously this will result unsatisfied customers. You will waste your resources, money, and project will ultimately is going to be failure for sure. So this is very important. As I have been just telling you, you have to be very focused when you're actually capturing the requirement. No assumptions. Everything has to be well captured, written, reviewed, and approved. So how do you actually elicit and capture the requirement? There's so many different processes that we will be studying in next slides today. Some of them I have mentioned here is interview, conducting surveys and analyzing the documents, and observing users and prototyping. These are some that I have named here. We have a lot more that we will be studying in details, each of them. And we will also discuss the different techniques and the pros and cons of all those techniques in the further slides. And it is very important for you to find all the relevant stakeholders and involve them from day one. If you will not involve them during requirement gathering, elicitation, or analysis process, probably you might not get all their feedbacks and inputs. When you reiterate things, you go in the iteration mode. What happens? You do the small things and you keep repeating doing all those things. So what happens? Gradually in the initial stages, business will know if you have captured the correct requirement, or business will also know if they have given you the correct requirements. So this is very important to keep them involved in all the phases, wherever you can. It's very important. Now, on a high level, what are the different techniques of the elicitation? The number one, which is very, very important, is you have to identify all possible stakeholders, because they are the one who will actually provide you the requirements. They are the one who will actually fund your project, use your software, will help you taking this forward. So this is very important for you to identify all the stakeholders. Now, the question is who the stakeholders are and how do we identify them? We have studied this before in detail in the previous classes, but today I'm also going to give you a refresher, I will help you revise your memories, who the stakeholders are, and how can we categorize them in different, the main broader categories in the further slides. And then once you have the stakeholders identified, then you should go ahead and find out what technique I'm going to use to capture the requirement from one or all the stakeholders. The key point to remember here is not all the techniques will work for one, or not one technique will work for all the stakeholders. You have to find out what technique I'm going to use with this or that or the whole group of the stakeholders. Now, again, this probably will come out from your previous experiences of this project, not your working experience. You have dealt with a lot of the stakeholders within the project, and you have studied a lot of documents. Now, probably you would know in detail, okay, this person A is very high in power, very high in interest. So I have to keep him informed or her informed or monitor very closely. So what technique I should be using when I'm going to go and talk to this person or this group of person? Probably you would be in a situation to know all those things when you have studied the requirement, you have done your homework. So this is very important. So I'm just again repeating, not one technique is going to be useful for all the stakeholders, and not all the techniques will be useful for one stakeholder. So you have to find out which one I'm going to use. Now, once you have identified the stakeholders and now you know what techniques I'm going to use, you have to capture the detailed requirements, which is the key. And then, as I said, you have to iterate, validate, and visualize along the way. What does it mean? It means you have captured something. Go and review with the team. Go and review with the business. Try to come up with some, some more insights, more details. If you can add some prototypes, some diagrams, images, so that business can understand more. Okay, this is going to look like this way. So what will happen? Business will try to clear the doubts and will try to give you more details. So this will help you. You will not be in a situation where the project will be completely failed. So that is why it is very important for you to keep business involved from day one, because they are the one who are going to use it. When I'm saying business, could be anyone, any of the stakeholders, could be the users, fund who is providing you the funds, or whoever. We are going to review them in detail in the next slides. So as I said, who the stakeholders are, we all know. We have studied this many times in the previous classes. Any person or group that has an interest in the project. So anyone who is directly, indirectly involved with the project will be your stakeholders. Anyone who is funding you, who's going to use, who's going to develop the software, you as a BA, your project manager, whoever is directly, indirectly involved with the project will be your stakeholders. Now you need to know, for the requirement gathering perspective, who are the key stakeholders for you, and you have to find them, document them, and talk to them for the requirements. The stakeholder can be responsible for one or more project activities or deliverables at the same time. This person may have multiple deliverables. This person might be working for different projects, or this person might be having a different roles within the same project. So you need to identify all of them. And how do you identify? The more you study the project, the more you meet with the people, the more you talk to them, the more you get the insights and the ideas. So the key is keep talking, keep learning, keep finding, those details, and keep moving forward. Make progressing every day. If you have someone who is really high in interest and high in power, don't you believe that person can have that person will be in a situation to create a lot of problems for you, or in other words, can help you a lot as well? So this stakeholder can really create constraints for you or boundaries for you, or can really clear them out for you so that you can move forward and do your good, do your best. So this is very important for you to understand who the stakeholders are, who can actually create problems or can help you a lot, right, during the project life cycle. So please make sure you have to have a clear understanding on the stakeholders. This person might be a decision maker or an influencer, as I just said, right? So you need to monitor them very closely and keep them informed always, because you don't want to mess with them. They are the key influencers. They can take certain decisions. They can decide to call off the project. They can decide to add more funds. They can decide to add more resources. So they are very important key stakeholders for you. They may not be interacting with you directly, but they are one of the stakeholders. So what is your roles and responsibility when you're actually identifying the stakeholders? Capture the details and monitor them closely and keep them informed so that they are not seeing any surprises and you are not seeing any surprises from them as well. The stakeholders can be a primary benefactor of the project, like they will be using or probably selling in the market. So now the last thing, stakeholders, who the stakeholders actually are. We have discussed this before. So any business owners, sponsors, customers, employees, IT staff, vendors and suppliers, regulators, compliance authorities, shareholders, and investors. And obviously your partners and collaborators, they all are the stakeholders. All right, so next, how do you identify the stakeholders? As I have just told you, identifying a stakeholder is a very important step in any of the project. You don't want to miss them. You don't want to miss their insights, their ideas. You don't want to be in a situation where their needs are not identified and captured, or not addressed, or not taken into account. This is very important for you to identify the key stakeholders. In a broader category, we as a BA, we try to categorize them in two different places. We have stakeholders or clients from the client end. From the client end stakeholders, we may have business owners, we may have sponsors, we may have managers, leaders, and the actual users. So you would like to categorize them and put all these stakeholders under the client and the stakeholders list. And other end is the development end as in your internal team. So this could be your project manager or program manager within your organization. It could be a business analyst, could be architect, designers, or UI or UX, user interface or user experience team members. You may have actual developers who will be developing all those codes, the testers who will be doing manual or automation testing, and somebody who is actually deploying and delivering this to the customer's premises. So all those are stakeholders. You need to have one stakeholder register created. You can create that register in Excel, Word, or any of the free tools you can find online. There's plenty of tools. And you need to have simple 2 columns, probably multiple columns, 2 different sections, client end and development end. You write the names, your email addresses, your official phone numbers, and their positions, and their influence level. Like, is this someone is very influential? Is this person has really high power or high interest, or low interest, low power, high interest, low power? All those things you need to identify initially. This will help you a lot during your requirement gathering process. When you're going to meet that person, now you know this person is at the client end or at the development end, or this person has what authority, what power, what interest, and then accordingly you can frame your questions. This is very important for you to identify the proper stakeholders and document them. Any questions before I go ahead?
Yes. Is there a name for this like table, like writing all the stakeholders? Like, is it called what do you say? I forgot the RACI matrix or something.
No, we call it stakeholder register. RACI matrix is something different. Probably we will not be studying here, but since you have used this word, I may take this into consideration. We'll try to teach you. So RACI is something different. We call it a simple stakeholder register. So within the register, we have all those stakeholders' names.
Okay.
Now, who is responsible? Who is accountable? That is something different. We will talk later on in some other classes that we call RACI, RACI. Responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So that's a separate thing. We'll discuss later on.
Okay.
So this Excel or tool is called stakeholder register. And now, since we're discussing this one, so you can ask me, when should I start writing the stakeholder register and when should I stop writing? When should I believe, okay, this is now the end of the stakeholder register? There's no certain answer for this question. For me, as a BA or as a PM, what normally I do is I start from day one and I keep updating throughout my project. Because today someone may be in a higher priority, tomorrow may not. Today someone could be someone may have high interest and high power. Tomorrow the person may not. Tomorrow I may add some new stakeholders. Tomorrow I may want to remove some out of the stakeholder list. So for me, this is my ongoing activity. I'm going to continue doing throughout my project. By the time I'm delivering the project, I'm getting this signed off from the business and the project is officially closed, I'm not going to stop working on the stakeholder register. I'm continue working on that and keep revising that thing. And then everything is done, I'm going to go ahead and upload this document to business repositories anywhere as per the company's policies. This is the stakeholder register is not your personal belonging. This is your company belongings. They own it. So you have to give it to them so that any new manager or new team members, if they're working in a similar project, they can use all those documents. Cool. Move next. How do you identify the requirements? This is a very important thing you have to understand. Couple of things you can do when you're actually identifying the requirements initially. This would be like very initial stages. First thing, what is as-is or current situation? It is important for you to understand what is the as-is situation, why this has come up, and what is as-is, like what is the current state business has right now. When I'm saying that means I got one requirement, so I needed to know, is this like a brand new requirement? Does business have anything similar with them that they would like to leverage and use that, or maybe carry over or carry forward with that? Whatever. So you have to understand. So you go and document what is the as-is situation. You get to requirement A, you document. So as-is situation is this, right? Business has these things already and business would like to utilize this thing, would like to leverage. Business may have a lot of legacy data that they would like to use it or in the future state of the project. So you needed to understand all those things. Business may have tons of legacy data that they would like to migrate with the new tool, new software. You need to understand what is the as-is situation and document it properly so that you don't miss the important things. And then what is the future state? What is to be? What is the required state that has to be done, that is required or needs to be done? So this is something you have to capture as well. If you miss to capture what is as-is and what is current state, probably you may not be able to justify what is to be and future state. So both are important for you. And you have to document everything in your requirement documentations, in your SRS or in your BRD. At least BRD is very important. You have to write this as-is and to be, and SRS may or may not have these details. Now, what things are important for you when you're capturing the requirement? Everything is important for you. To name some of them I've written here, like you have to describe properly what is the functional requirement, what is non-functional requirements, Now, when I'm saying non-functional requirements, what does it mean? It means the quality attributes of the software, such as performance, security, scalability, usability. All those things are your non-functional requirements. Functional requirement is the main thing, the main action of the that project. Non-functions are everything which are supporting to that non-functional, the functional requirements. We have studied this in detail. I've given you a good example of the functional, non-functional. Even if not, you don't remember, go back and watch my previous videos. You will definitely learn in detail what is function, what is non-functional, and I've given you very basic examples to help you clear your understanding on these factors. Any questions here? Silence is no. Cool. Thank you. Now we are going to enter into the requirement gathering world. So now from here onwards, we will understand what are the different types of requirements. We have studied this before as well. This is just to remind you. And then what techniques are we going to use, and what is the advantages and disadvantages of each of the techniques. So based on the advantages and disadvantages, you will decide based on the group of the people or the current situation, which technique I should be using, weighing your advantages and disadvantages both. So this slide is like just to remind you, because we are going to talk a lot about the requirements. So I just thought to remind you, there are basically three types of the requirements. One is the interface requirement. This is front-end requirements, how your screens or your wireframes or mockups should look like. How should it look like as a front-end screen? When I'm going to go to any of the websites, how is it looking? That is your front-end requirement. We call it technically graphical user interface, but this is nothing but your front-end screens and nothing else. And then your functional requirement and your non-functional requirement, we just studied, and I just give you one example. Right. So what are the fact findings? When you are actually going ahead and capturing the requirement, what are the fact findings? How do you go in detail and try to capture the requirement properly? Couple of things. When you are into the requirement gathering phase, you have to focus on what and why it is needed, and sometimes where it is needed, or probably when it is needed. Customer can also give you a tentative or like high-level ballpark timeline requirements. Okay, this is what I need, this is why I need, and I want you to deliver this to me by this date or by this time, blah, blah, and by this place. So during requirement gathering, you should be focusing on what and why, but probably you may also end up capturing when and where. But how is a big no. How you will only do when you're actually doing elicitation or analyzing those requirements in detail. You're defining those requirements and then finding out, okay, if this is possible, if yes, how can we do these things? This how part includes a lot of things, your technical expertise, the development inputs, the limitation, cost trends, everything. So this is something you will not be doing when you're capturing the requirements. So they're like, these are WH concepts. I say this is not official term, but I use it at like WH concepts so that this is easy for you to remember. There are like 5 WH: what, why, when, where, and how. You can memorize this if you want. It's not needed. You don't see that red icon, so it's not needed. But if you want, you can memorize these things. All right, so data gathering techniques. There's so many techniques, as I said, you can use when you're actually capturing the requirement. And these are very important for you. As I'm just repeating, you don't need to use all of them. You might use just 1, 2, or some of them, or probably you may end up using all of them. That all depends upon the stage of the project, the maturity of the project, the maturity of the stakeholders, and your experience. Start with first interviews. What is interview? Interview is nothing but you are like going ahead and talking to some subject matter expert or one of the stakeholders one-to-one who will give you the details. It's like interviews, like simple interview. You have invited someone from the stakeholder. You're sitting with him or her one-to-one and asking your questions on the requirements. So it's moreover, it's like one-to-one meeting. Focus group. Focus group is like another form of the interview. Here, what you do, you have invited like group of people, group of key stakeholders together, and you're asking them the questions. So difference between interviews and focus group is interview is one-on-one, and focus group is like a group of interviews. You're just calling group of people for the same interview, and you're trying to capture the requirement. What is facilitated workshop? Here, what you do is you try to co-locate all the key stakeholders at one common room, one common war room, one place where everybody is sitting together. This might include your business sponsors, your development team, your management, business management, all possible key stakeholders. When I'm saying key stakeholders, you may not invite all the developers, probably a technical lead, probably just a technical manager, and not the individual developers, but you may decide to invite them as well. That completely depends. Why do you need them to invite? Probably there's something that they needed to understand, that they need to know, and you believe you may not be able to justify those information you're passing it through. So you would want them to come and join these meetings as well. So this is what we call facilitated this workshop. This is very important, very important. And the BA has to be really, really, experienced. Probably when I'm saying experience, you need to have those skills where you can handle this like group key stakeholders. Just try to assume one room and you have like all directors, senior directors, CEOs, the key stakeholders, the funders, resources, all those are as one place, and you're asking them the question. You want that session to go really well. So you have to be pretty ready, done your homework. This might be challenging for you because you're going to handle all those key stakeholders at one place. So how do you gain those confidence? Obviously, as more you work, the more you do all these sessions, gradually you learn. You gain more experiences. You learn from your mistakes, and you utilize those things to improve your skill set. So it takes some time, but it happens actually. The one common example is joint application development, JAD. This is a very common term in traditional waterfall. People might ask you the question, what is JAD? What is joint application development? How do you do this thing? So the answer is, during JAD, we try to bring all the key stakeholders at one place in one room, and we discuss the key points, key issues. That might be requirement gathering, that might be discussion of one of the requirements in details. And we try to bring all people at one place and one together, and so that fix it. We can fix it then and there on the fly, or at least we can find a solution, or we can get some agreement on the fly. So this is one of the examples of facilitated workshops. Next, there's some group creativity techniques. These techniques are also very important for the requirement gathering. A BA must understand the importance of creating an environment where people can feel comfortable and safe sharing process and ideas. What does it mean? You have a lot of people at one place. Some probably might be one of the team members. Some might be like, the CEO or maybe directors, senior directors, or the key stakeholders. They all may not feel comfortable talking at the same time. Probably I may have, I might be hesitant to talk. I might think, okay, I'm going to create some enemies for me. I'm going to like sound funny. Okay. I'm going to like probably go against my manager or my leaders. Better let me keep silent and keep listening to them. You might face this situation in the group creativity technique. So this is very important for you as a BA to create the environment where everybody feel comfortable talking and sharing the ideas and feedback. And how do you do that? There's so many different ways you can do that. You can have some fun games. You can try to be more like cool, as long as maintaining your professionalism. You have to do all those things. So this is something you have to make sure you're creating that environment where everybody is talking. If people are not talking, these will not serve the purpose. Hope you're getting my point. So now, what are different group creativity techniques? The first one is the brainstorming, which is very important. You will always see these questions coming to your way. What is brainstorming and how do you do these things? It's very pretty simple. What happens in the brainstorming session, we bring all the key stakeholders together, and they all sit together, they all share the ideas. Let's say I have one common issue. How should we plan next holiday? Now, this is one of the topics. Example. Now, you will invite all the related folks who can give you more insights and ideas, and you will have all sit together at the one place, and one by one, everybody will be sharing the information. And then once everyone is done, we will discuss all those inputs in detail. So as a BA, you will be facilitating these sessions. How would you do? You will try to capture the notes. Probably you can have your screen shared and you can keep typing. Like person A is saying, we should be doing this thing. You write it down. Person B is saying, okay, I think we should also do this thing. Write it down so that everyone knows what you have written. And then once everyone is done, you go and start talking one by one all those ideas, and you finally decide something. So this is what we call brainstorming. Nothing but to collect the ideas from different sources at the same place, same time, in one room. Now, what is nominal group technique? This is nothing but one step addition to the brainstorming. In this technique, whatever information you have captured from the brainstorming session, you will go and weight them. You will prioritize them and see, okay, out of 10 ideas that we have captured, these 5 are on the higher priority and critical ones that we will be taking care of first. These 2 are like on a medium priority, and these 2 are okay. It's good to have. If we can do this, if we have bandwidth as in time, we can do this one. If we do not have bandwidth, that is completely fine. We can park it for some other time, maybe for the next sessions or next the development phase. So in this nominal group techniques, you all together try to prioritize and vote them, together. Everybody will be voting together. Let's say you got 5 what can be improved kind of thing. Out of you got 10 ideas. Out of 10, you have decided, okay, 4 are something that can be done differently and improved. Out of 4, we have to take only 2. So which 2 we should be taking into the action, the actual action? So the whole team will vote. They will provide the anonymous vote to those 2 items, and the highest voted items you will move to the action item section that you will be actually taking an action. When I'm saying you, as in probably just you or your team or everybody. So this is how you vote and how you identify which are ones on higher priority and which one we are going to take into the action. You do that in nominal group techniques. So probably you might encounter these questions: what is brainstorming and what you do next? Or probably people will ask you, what is nominal group technique? How this is different than brainstorming? Very, very important and very simple. If you have understood the concept, it's very simple. Now, what is Delphi technique? This is very common question. You will 100%, if people will not ask you the brainstorming, they will ask you what is Delphi technique. Delphi technique is nothing but to capture the requirement anonymously. You do the same thing, but no one knows what information or idea is coming from whom. It is anonymous. And why do we do this thing? As I just said, in one room, probably I may have one junior resource, I may have one senior resource, I may have someone from the management, and I don't want anyone to get influenced by someone's ideas and insights. Let's say my manager is there and he is sharing something. Since he's my manager or she is my manager, I may not be able to go against him or her, or probably add something that I really wanted to add, because I will have a fear of get noticed and creating enemies or like sound funny. So to avoid those situations, BA decides to do Delphi technique. And when will you do this Delphi technique? Again, as I said, this completely depends upon the situation. So better you will go and do Delphi techniques. You will capture the insights and the requirements, but anonymously, so that no one knows who has written and no one is getting influenced by others' input or ideas. So this is very important. But what are you doing here? You're doing the same thing. You're capturing the requirements and nothing else. Now, ideas and mind mapping. This is the last stage of the probably this group creativity technique. Here, what happens? You have captured the requirement. You have discussed those in details. You have prioritized them, and now you would like to show them in some graphical, way, with some diagrams. So diagrams talks more than the words. You know this very well. So you might end up writing like 10 pages for one requirement, and the 10 pages requirement can be presented in like 1-page diagram. So this saves you time and this makes people easy to understand. So I have captured some of the requirement. Now I would like to go ahead and do some mind mapping. I would like to create some diagrams, some prototypes, which are already obviously will be aligned to those ideas. So people can see and people can again give you the feedback. People will say, oh, this is what you have got. No, I didn't want this. I said something else. You know what? This looks pretty, but if we can add this thing, this is going to be really, really helpful. This will be awesome. So when people see something, they say something. It's very important. So it is important for you to show them what you have come up from all those ideas. So in ideas and mind mapping, you come up with the diagrams. And diagrams could be anything. Could be use case diagram, could be class diagram, could be simple UI UX design, whatever. That again depends upon the requirement. So these are basically group creativity techniques. Before I go ahead, any questions?
Sajid, I have a question. Could you please repeat this point, Delphi technique? In this technique, we are gathering information or data from the anonymous, right?
Mhm.
So how we can capture the ideas or data from anonymous?
Okay. There are thousands of tools online available where you can create those boards where people will be writing and no one knows who has written, right? So what you will do, you will have one of the boards from those free sources. So you can also create your board and you will share with the team. Like we have 5 people in the group and I'm going to share that report. Everybody will be going and adding stickies and notes to that board, but no one knows who has written, right? So probably everybody will feel comfortable writing and they don't have to write their names. So this will be like anonymous data you're getting. You see the data, but who has written, you don't know. That's one of the ways. The other way, now you may have another question. People might see what I'm writing. The other people might not be writing against me. That's cool. So what you will do, you will not share those screens to everyone. Let's say the same tool you will be providing all those people, and probably you will stop sharing your screen and you will do something that people just write and they do not bother who is writing and where it is writing and what is coming in there. And then once you have captured everything, you can go start on reviewing all those things. There's so many different free tools that you can use it. So the ultimate purpose is you should not, any the people should not know who is writing. It should be anonymous. If I'm writing something, you just see what is written, but you don't know who has written. That's what it is called Delphi technique. There's so many different ways of doing Delphi techniques. You can use it, but the only one focus is you should not uh, share who has written. That's all. Everybody has to write, but who has written, no one knows. Did I answer the question, Wasim, or should I give you more example?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
And it's kind of the a common tool which will be used by all the stakeholders, but in separately, right?
One common tool everybody will be using. One common page is like, if you, well, there's so many pages like Google page. You create one Google page, right? And you publish there. Everybody can use that page and can write there. Everybody can contribute, but no one knows who has written. Like you create one common Google Forms and you're asking some feedback from different group of people. And you don't want to capture their names. You just disable the name option. You will have just options like 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody will be giving their option, but no one knows who has written. Like the people can use.
Yeah, that's thank you. I
All
got
right,
it.
cool. So let's take 1 minute break and we'll start once again.